Yeah. Now, does it mean that if his phone was recovered, there might not still be some kind of evidence that was only on the phone? Yeah, that could still totally be possible. I think it's one of the troubling things about the disappearance of that phone is what is on there. He clearly was on it minutes before his disappearance. It looks like he was going somewhere. It's not inconceivable that there's a missing text message or WhatsApp message or something like that. It's just that we don't have it right now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Unsolved. I'm Miles Reef. I'm here as always with my buddy Sean Cahill. This is the place where we tackle the stories that the TV networks won't touch. Guys, it's Monday. It's time to get into some comment reacts. Sean, before we get into it, do we have any channel business that we need to cover?
I don't think we have business, but I do want to say that the Liam Toman case, which we're smack in the middle of covering right now, is really doing well. You guys had a lot to say about this. So far, we've put up the case breakdown and the interview with Liam's mom, Kathleen. This Friday, you're going to see the interview with his dad, Chris, and his wife, Laura. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing that I wanted to get out of the way is just saying thank you guys for your massive interest in this. It's a very current story. Liam only went missing in 2025. So I think this is exactly what families want to see, when they go on a podcast like this, is people actually tuning in and watching. So thank you
Yeah,
guys for doing your part.
absolutely, guys. Yeah, I mean, it's we're close to 100,000 views on that, and as Sean said, it means a lot. It means a lot to the family. And all the people that have been following this case for so long, because I know there's been a lot of sharing it on Facebook and in the official Facebook group, and a lot of people in there have been sharing it on their personal feeds. So it's always nice to see that when what we're doing actually has an impact in the real world. All right, should we get into it?
Yeah, and today is all Liam Tillman comments, I think, right, Miles? That's where we got
Absolutely.
so many that we're
Yep.
just going to focus on that.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right.
And for those who care, I am back in the United States.
Welcome
And
home. Yeah.
I am Sean and I are a couple hours difference from each other at the moment, but we are in the same country. So
Yeah.
things are getting a little easier for us to manage this. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
we appreciate you guys sticking by us, and I appreciate Sean for carrying so much of the post-production load while I've been in on the other side of the world for the last 2 months.
Oh, thank
Um,
you for that. We made it through.
all right, let me get into this first comment. Nikki Shargreaves 1111 says, "Did Liam have his phone on him when he was with the two guys? I'm wondering if he had been robbed of his phone and wallet and was asking for directions to report it. The money was stolen and the wallet just thrown away, hence why found later with no money. Liam seems to be walking quite urgently." Okay, so this is something that we actually can answer pretty definitively because we know that the surveillance footage that captured Liam speaking to those two gentlemen was captured between 3 and 3:15 in the morning. We also know that Liam's last text to his friend was sent, well, it went to his father, but it was meant for his friend, went at 3:17 that morning. So I think it is safe to say that Liam was still in possession of his phone when he was chatting with those two guys. And there's nothing in that footage that shows them, attacking him or taking his phone or anything like that. So we can answer that.
Yeah, and
What
I will
else?
also say just the geography of the area. He's on camera so much up until he meets these guys. It's really after that that the visibility kind of drops off, and all the way there, he seems fine. Like there's nobody with him. He's kind of got the same walk. There's no moment where it changes to look like something has just happened to him. He's casual all the way through talking to them and then walking out of frame there. We get the text, and then that's kind of it. So it's a great question, and it's definitely a good one to bring up. What about this part where they wonder if maybe the wallet was discovered because somebody robbed him? That could have happened still after 317, and they just took the money and threw it on the ground. I mean, what do we think about that?
Yeah, yeah, no, that I think that's a possibility, and that then it was in the snow, and basically it was discovered later because of the snow melting. I mean, it's possible. I think it's also possible that somebody had the wallet and held on to it for a while, and then they decided to come back and kind of like get rid of it. I think there's a lot of possibilities with the wallet, but totally what you're saying here, Nikki, is totally possible as far as the wallet goes. I think the most important thing though is that we can pretty conclusively say that he still had his phone at that time.
Right. Yeah, the second half of this makes sense, but I think if that happened, it happened after we last see him on camera. All right, I'll take this next one. Oh, it's from our old friend Maureen. Hello, Maureen. So she says, has the family been able to check all of his apps? I know there's been multiple missing cases. They found out that the person has been on certain apps and that they met with people and there was foul play. Right. So you're suggesting like, did he have a dating app or some kind of like social app where maybe there was a connection there? He was going to meet somebody and the phone would have revealed who that is. So it's interesting, Miles, because they weren't able to recover the phone. We still don't know where that is, but he did have an iPad that was sort of synced to the phone up to a certain point, at least. And as far as they could tell, there was no like dating app activity or social media stuff. I mean, all that was looked into as far as they could look at it. And they were mostly curious, I think, about his text messages and his calls, which also like had a clone of them on the iPad, right? Like it mirrors the device, and that
Yeah.
also kind of led nowhere. So. I
And I
guess
know that they checked his Instagram because according at least to his dad, Liam did use Instagram, sort of DMs a lot.
Mhm.
They even communicated that way, and I guess he might have had more than one account, like kind of one, for the family and one for his friends. And they did look into that, and there was nothing strange or nothing that led to anybody being questioned or anything like that.
Yeah. Now, does it mean that if his phone was recovered, there might not still be some kind of evidence that was only on the phone? Yeah, that could still totally be possible. I think it's one of the troubling things about the disappearance of that phone is what is on there. He clearly was on it minutes before his disappearance. It looks like he was going somewhere. It's not inconceivable that there's a missing text message or WhatsApp message or something like that. It's just that we don't have it right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to. I think, a lot of the stuff with Liam's case, I think, comes down to a lack of information, right?
Hmm.
Keith Bailey, 3014, says, as you guys probably know, where Liam went missing is right in the pedestrian village of the resort. So it's not a real downtown area, just a fabricated one within the resort itself. Totally. I mean, I guess it's a question of semantics, right? Because it's like, it's the same with where Ryan disappeared. I mean, what's a real downtown area? I mean, it's a place where people are staying and there's like a central hub and they can do things. I understand what you're saying. It's not, it's sort of fabricated for this, these resorts, and it's kind of where everyone comes together and it's where these hotels are, but it still serves the same purpose, right? So I get what you're saying, but I do think it's a matter of semantics. I guess the important part of what Keith is saying, though, is that it's basically like there's only going to be certain type of people that are there, right? It's like people
Hmm.
who are staying at the resort, people who work within that community that's serving the people that are going there, like people who work at bars, people who work in tourism, people who are working at the hotels. So I guess it does kind of, people who are coming in who maybe aren't staying there, who are just coming in to party, right? Which
Right.
happens, obviously, like locals come in and like sort of party at these resorts. So I think it does speak to sort of like what's taking place in this area and who might have been there and what their activity might have been.
Right.
That's a fair point, and it's something to be remembered. And I think it should narrow down who you're looking at, because it's not like you're in like a metropolitan downtown area where it could be anybody, right?
Yeah. Well, and it adds to the mystery too, I think, which is part of it. It's not like Liam was in some metropolitan area where he accidentally wandered into Skid Row at 3 a.m. and there was a bunch of dangerous characters hanging around and oh my God, suddenly he's on the wrong side of the tracks. It's a safe ski resort town, mostly like a private, thing, almost like downtown Disney or something like that, but just skewed more towards the skiing lifestyle. So that does make it so strange that anything would happen like this in a place like that. And I think it's why everybody is so unsettled and mystified because it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And you would think with the type of people, like you said, Miles, the type of people who are there and the size, the sheer like tiny size of it, there would be more answers forthcoming. It just is very odd. And you're right, Keith. I'm glad you left that comment actually, even though it is semantics, but maybe it's kind of an important clarification.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's like how you're saying it, right? It's like it's not a real downtown area. Well, it's about the fact that it is just sort of catering to hotels and bars and ski lodges and this kind of stuff, right? So it is pretty specific, right?
Mhm. This next one looks like it's also from Keith. So we put them together here. So Keith, in a separate comment, says, I find it odd that neither guy remembers what Liam was asking them about. I think they were questioned within a few days, not like months later, no? Yeah, you're right. I don't think it took very long for them to track those two gentlemen down who turned out to be French sort of ski tourists who were there for the night. And these guys, from what the family told us, are guys who kind of bounce around ski resorts. There's a lot of people like that. They're basically like, I think being a ski bum is kind of the lifestyle, right? Like spend a couple weeks here, move on, the season ends, you go get a job somewhere and come back next winter. And so it is weird that they don't remember what Liam said because the conversation does go on for several seconds and it does seem like they spoke to him. I mean, they're off camera in this video, so it's hard to say what they were doing or what they looked like in that moment. But it's also not like a really crowded street that night. So it does rub a lot of people as unusual. These guys don't remember what the question was that he had. But then again, it was almost 3:30 in the morning. Everybody was definitely, had been partying a little bit, and that can affect memory. So I don't know, Miles, what do you make of all that?
I think that it's important to remember that this is an active investigation and that the police aren't necessarily going to always they're not going to talk about their suspicions or who their suspects are, right? So, as in a lot of cases that we've covered, and a lot of missing persons cases, a lot of unsolved murders, even if someone's been talked to and they are still a suspect in the minds of the investigators, but they can't prove anything yet, they're not going to tell us that, right? So, that's the information that we have right now, but I wouldn't rule anybody out at this moment.
It's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm sure it's not lost on the investigators that it's strange that these guys don't remember what their conversation with Liam was about. Is it conceivable that it was so not a big deal that they just didn't register it in their memories? It's conceivable. Is it a really unfortunate coincidence for them that the last people that this missing young man spoke to is them and they don't remember what the conversation was about? I'd hate to be in that position. But stranger things have happened. I think all we can do now is wait and see where this all goes. But you guys are definitely onto it as far as the details. I mean, like that sticks out, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember as well that it doesn't have to if something happened to Liam that night other than succumbing to the elements and just mysteriously no trace of his body has ever been found except for his wallet. I think that means obviously that someone did something, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that was captured on camera. It could be someone that he was communicating with through some app that hasn't been discovered because his phone's missing. It could be that it was someone that he spoke to in one of the establishments that he was at that night, and they exchanged information, and we just, that wasn't captured. So anything's possible. It could also be that it's someone that is on camera, and we know that he had multiple interactions that night. Different types, some conversations, some a little bit, more confrontational. So it could be someone who, we're already aware of, or it could be someone that we're not aware of.
Yeah, and I think that the important thing with these two guys as well is that what they remember or don't remember doesn't necessarily point to guilt at this point. It's just frustrating because they may have seen somebody that night who is responsible for this. They may have overheard something that is connected to this. And if they remembered what Liam told them, maybe there'd be an aha moment there. But with them saying they don't remember, it's almost as bad as having like, these missing security cameras after Liam goes out of frame the last time. And not seeing what happens after that is a missing piece of evidence that really hurts this investigation in the same way that these guys not remembering anything hurts it. They are basically the human version of a non-functional security camera that night, for lack of a better way to put it.
Right. Absolutely. Um, okay. One of our favorites, D's Nuts 901. How's it going? Good to see you again. You love making me say your screen name, don't you?
It always
Pe-
does seem to land on you when he comments.
It's okay. Uh, People are vanishing all over this country, and it's terrifying. I know I'm going to get SH blank T for this, and I mean no disrespect. I believe in aliens. Isn't it possible? Listen, D's. You're not the first person to say that. I mean, we've interviewed parents who have sort of talked to us about that as being a possibility off camera. I don't think we've ever included it in an actual interview, and I'm not
No,
going to, sort of name names of who may have offered that up as a possible reason for their child disappearing. But we have had that conversation with folks before. I mean, you know, I used to be a big, big believer in a lot of things, and I have to say, with the state of the world right now, I'm becoming less and less of a conspiracy theorist because it's just become such a trend that it seems like
not
it's
fun
not the
anymore.
thing to be anymore. It's not cool anymore.
Right.
But I do believe that there is probably alien life. Are they kidnapping, young people and doing whatever with them? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what's the Kurt Vonnegut book where they picked the Billy Pilgrim and they put him in
Slaughterhouse-Five.
Slaughterhouse-Five. Yeah. Yeah, anything's possible, man. Anything's possible.
Yeah, and I love that you did include that you don't mean any disrespect. I mean, you're positing this as like a serious, like, should we consider this? And everything is on the table until it's not, right? I think for me, I always kind of like, I think I've said this multiple times on this channel, but I always like visualize these things as a bullseye, right? You're kind of aiming for the center, the most plausible things, and when that doesn't work out, you move out to that next ring, right? And if that doesn't work out, you move out again. So eventually the ring's going to become aliens. I don't think that's going to happen in Liam Toman's case, but it's on the ring somewhere in the outer reaches of my mental bullseye map for all of these cases, right? Miles, you have a Spock saying you always bring to the table when we have this conversation, right? That's
Oh
like,
yeah, when you do away with the impossible, what you're left with is the answer, no matter how improbable it is, right?
yeah,
So I,
yeah,
I do, I do, I can't help but think of what's his name, Georgios Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens, though, going, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
right.
I think maybe that's our thumbnail for this one.
I think that when I see the first part of this comment where he says people are vanishing all over this country and it's terrifying, and then we kind of get to aliens from there. I think what's really terrifying is that it's not aliens, it's other human beings, right? And like
Right,
reckoning with that is even scarier because you're
right.
surrounded by human beings. Aliens, I've never personally seen one outside of some questionable photos on the internet. But
There
yeah, I
does seem
would,
to be a thing though, right? With and this is Canada, so it's not even the United States, but
yeah.
all over North America, I would say, and the entire sort of like greater American continent, there are young people disappearing, men,
Yeah.
women, but that does seem to be the common denominator is that they're younger people, and it is really, really disturbing.
It's extremely disturbing. And I think I think we're gonna get this one solved at some point, and the answer is going to be much closer to reality, I think, than Little Green Men. So yeah, but who knows? I hate to take anything off the table for everybody until it's off the table. But my personal inclination is there's a bunch of people in town that night. Liam interacted with a lot of folks. His wallet was found with money missing. It's hard to imagine that an alien has a lot, to do with a couple $100 in cash or whatever he might have had on him. I think a person might be behind this.
They're not green though, Sean. They're gray. I think
That's
that's
true.
that's like decided at this
That's
point,
that's
right?
like well known at this point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, another mystery solved for Sean. Oh, Miles, this next one is a good friend of ours. Hello, KG Penguin, a member. Thank you so much. Now, KG Penguin, your magnifying glass badge has changed color because you've been a member for so long that it's been upgraded to green. And I think there's more colors you will find down the road the longer you hang in there. So KG Penguin says, I watched the Fifth Estate episode on Liam after I saw this one. That's a good idea, everybody. You should do that. They mentioned a white car that was being investigated for a long time but never located. Hopefully, some of the guests you are having on your show to talk about the case will know something more about the white car. Yeah, so they do. I think the Liam's family talks about this white car that's caught on video, and from just pulling from my memory here, it hasn't gone anywhere yet because there's really no identifying information. They weren't able to figure out the make, the model. There's no license plate they can discern. So it really is just this sort of like vague white car, and they don't know if it's connected. They don't know if it's not connected. But obviously, the investigators are looking at everything on those videos and trying to track down, who's this person? What's that car? What's this detail? And that's one that has been sort of out there and unanswered for, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you guys have to remember the way that we usually do this is we do our interviews first, just to give you kind of a peek into the process. Like we will interview family members, the investigators, whoever we've got our hands on. And then after doing that, doing our own research, then we shoot the case breakdown. So we try to make the case breakdowns kind of lean and mean because there's lots of videos available on YouTube, and sometimes, there'll be a television documentary of some sort that sort of just like goes through every single detail of the backstory and theories and stuff like that. And usually we try to present like the basic facts that we know, also integrating what we've learned from interviewing the family members, and then we do our case breakdown. So it's not to say that we didn't know about the white car, but it didn't seem like something worth including in that case breakdown. But as Sean said, watch the interviews, and I think you'll get more insight into it. Beverly Mary, that's a great name, Beverly. I don't think you've left a comment before, so welcome and thank you. Just watched on Fifth Estate. Listen, we can't recommend that Fifth Estate coverage of this enough. A lot of great interviews in there. Comments are paused. My suggestion is, since there's the two young men missing, Liam and Ryan, from ski resorts, have investigators looked into all staff and suggesting a staff member did something in Sun Peaks, then left, and being hired at the second resort. It's so eerily similar. Also, Liam was probably looking for his wallet in those videos as his pass key to his room. Then, unfortunately, something happened. So I'm going to kind of take this piece by piece. Uh, that first comment's actually really, really interesting.
Hmm.
And I don't know, we should follow up on that because that is a very, very interesting thought that, I mean, it does feel a little bit like something that would happen in a movie, right? Where there's this, employee who's going from, ski resort to ski resort, sort of doing something horrible, leaving and getting a job at a new place, repeating the pattern.
Yeah, they
Um, you
call it
know,
the modus operandi, right? Like
yeah.
that's their thing. Yeah.
It's a very interesting theory. And I don't know. Obviously, these are different jurisdictions, different investigators, but I'm I'm very curious about that, and we're gonna look into that. Um, was probably looking for his wallet in those videos. It has passkey to his room. That's something unfortunately happened. I mean, I guess that's possible. You're saying that like he was like wandering around outside the hotel and he had dropped his wallet out there and he was looking for it, and maybe that's what he was speaking to those two guys about. I suppose that's possible. I mean, what I would say to that is that we do know, as we said earlier, that Liam did still have possession of his phone at that point because the last text that went out accidentally to his father was sent after we saw him on camera talking to those two guys. So the idea that he lost his wallet, but he still had his phone in his hand, I don't know. I mean, and also if he had his wallet because he had taken it out to take the pass key out, like why would he drop it if he? I'm going down a lot of like theoretical
Yeah.
pathways here, but
Good
I,
question.
it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that we have heard over and over from his parents that like Liam had, he had these like ski pants with zippers on him and stuff, and that he like was very, very careful with his stuff and always had him in like secure places, and he seemed really fastidious about that. So, take from that what you will. It's kind of it's hearsay, but it's
Well, we
hearsay
also
that people
know,
do.
yeah, I mean, we also know that he settled up at the bar, right? Because his parents
Right.
were able to see everything he bought that night. He used his card. So, at first blush, I was like, oh, guess it's conceivable he lost his wallet in the bar earlier that night. And when he left, he realized he couldn't get in. But no, he paid before he left at closing time. So he would have had it at that point when he walked out of the bar. And then conceivably, by the time he gets to these guys, if he realized he didn't have it, the common sense would kind of tell you he would probably just go back to the bar where there were still people and say, I think I lost my wallet here. Can somebody go in and look, right? Like that's what I would do.
But I
Um,
think I think just reading between the lines on Beverly's comment that she's saying that maybe he left the wallet around the hotel and that's why he was looking around for it, right?
mhm.
He was looking for his wallet in those videos. It has the passkey to his room. I don't know. I mean, look, and again, I keep saying anything's possible, and that's because there's so many questions around this case, But I think Beverly, your comment about like is there possibly someone who worked at both resorts? It's really, really interesting. I definitely want to look
Yeah.
into them.
That's the part that really jumps out at me as well. It is so eerily similar, and everyone who looks at Liam's case thinks of Ryan if they're aware of it because there's just so many similarities, even though these happen on opposite sides of Canada in two
Yeah,
completely different resorts.
right.
Yeah, a lot to think about.
And I
I'll
think
look.
that's important for us to remember, everybody in the States, it's kind of like, you know, and other places aren't necessarily set up exactly like America, where states are like, so individualistic and stand apart, but there are different jurisdictions, right? So it's like, it's not like these places are right next to each other and it's the same cops who are looking at these cases. Like they're pretty spread out, as Sean said.
Yeah, well said. All right, I'll take this next one from TJ Belkov, a little bit of a longer one. Let's buckle in. So, TJ says, if you look at a map of the wider area, Mont-Tremblant is a village on the mountain that is just there for the ski hill. There are other chalets that are rented out and some local residents in the area. It is an international resort with many guests. Maybe other hotels should check as to who came in after Liam disappeared, or other cameras were checked for cars leaving the underground parking at the bigger hotels there at the time of the disappearance. I think he was lured outside the camera range with the promise of a house party and then mugged and his body dumped. Perhaps his death was not planned. Perhaps the phone was thrown away after the body was dumped. A local or a visitor to the village is possible. They could have had a car. I feel for his family and friends. Others have to be more aware that drinking and leaving a friend alone is a risky act that can lead to things like this. If this is normal for young men, then they need targeted education. A lot there, and yeah, I think all of it is really a good point. I mean, I would imagine the investigators are combing through every camera and checking every hotel list, looking for cars going in and out, looking for people coming back to hotels after the time Liam was last seen on camera. I don't know because I'm not privy to the inside of the investigation, and frankly, neither is Liam's family that we've spoken to. Just how much they have and how much they've seen and how thorough that's been. You would want it to be really thorough. Has it been? Only they know at this point. But it's a great point. That should be done. That's due diligence in an investigation like this.
Yeah.
As far as your theory of what could have happened, him being lured outside the camera range with the promise of a party and then mugged and his body dumped. I mean, it makes as much sense as anything else at this point. It looks like he's going somewhere. Seems like he's calling his friend, trying to get him to come outside and go somewhere with him. What could that be at 3:17 in the morning, except for possibly another party or something similar to it? I don't know, Miles. What do you think?
I think that's probably pretty close to what happened. Just from having spoken to other people about this, obviously, and you and I kind of banging this back and forth for a while now. That to me is in the range of what everyone's thinking, right? You don't send a text to your friend and say, "Hey, come downstairs," if you're going to hook up with a girl that you met, right? It's not. It wasn't that kind of a rendezvous. Like wherever Liam was going, he wanted his friends to come with him. It was like an opportunity to keep the fun going that night. That's what I read from the evidence that we have. So what TJ is positing here, I think, is very, very plausible and very logical based on what we know.
Yeah, and the last thing, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. Well, no,
I
I think
was
we were going to say the same thing. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's the final part of the comment, right? About friends leaving friends at bars. Yeah, unfortunately, this does happen, and it's probably 99% of the time everybody makes it home, but the cases that we talk about on this channel where this has happened, they don't. And it's really important, you shouldn't leave your friends alone, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place in an unfamiliar bar. Unfortunately, this kind of stuff can happen. And it sounds like they had been separated, Liam and his friend, for quite a while in that bar before the friend went home, and then Liam eventually left after. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think this is normal behavior, but I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And we actually had another comment that's not included in here that I'll touch on, where someone had said, it seems like maybe we were normalizing that kind of behavior because we were talking about how young the guys were and like the poor decision making that goes on in your early 20s. And I want to be clear, like Miles and I don't want to normalize that. We don't think that's normal. We don't think it's okay. And there's no excuse for it. But it is a known fact that people at that point in their lives are their brains are not fully developed, and it's specifically the frontal cortex, right, which is responsible for long-term decision making, impulse control, like things that, an adult has that someone that's 22 years old just doesn't have that fully developed yet. And so when people are inebriated, they're, not thinking properly, sometimes really bad decisions get made. And I think that's all we were trying to point out. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't mean that there's nothing to see here. It just means, well, we can maybe understand why sometimes people make really crappy decisions if you look at the details surrounding that decision.
I think Sean and I always try to give a little bit of grace, just based on our own life experience and, understanding what it's like to be that age. We're not sitting here in judgment, right? We're trying to help find what happened to Liam. So, end of the
Exactly.
day, that's all it's about. SKR0911UTD. I'm not sure how it's in other countries, but generally, people who know people will generally step in to aid them if they see something amiss. Basically, what I want to know is it common for a stranger to step in and tell another stranger who was having a friendly conversation with some girls that those were not the type of girls he was looking for? Or did this Olivier know the girls in concern? Just seems odd to me, especially if the conversation or interaction between Liam and the girls was friendly, that a stranger steps in to tell Liam that these girls were accounted for. How do you even know that Liam was having this kind of conversation with the ladies? He could have just been his normal social friendly self and talking to the ladies about his trip and stuff. I mean, look, everything you're saying, I get. I mean, SKR, I didn't check. I don't know what country you're in. I'm assuming you're in the United States. I will say that I think it is pretty common for guys to, sort of like step in and, try to claim things in an environment like that, especially when people are young and they're drinking and, maybe somebody knows the girls or he knows someone who's dating one of them or something like that. I think that is fairly common, especially when the person in question is an unknown, is a stranger, and maybe everybody else kind of like is more local and knows each other. I don't think that's that uncommon. Is it common for a stranger to step in? So yeah, I would just say that I mean culturally, I mean, look, I'm from the East Coast. Sean's from the West Coast. I'm just as far as where we grew up. And I mean, you tell me, Sean, but like, certainly growing up in New York, I saw that kind of thing, plenty in my life where it
Yeah.
was like, hey, bro, back off. You don't want to be talking to these chicks. Like that's not a super uncommon thing to happen, where I'm from. So I don't know.
And I think
Um,
you should add too into the calculation here that this is like a tourist area with a locals only thing where it's like, the locals want a place to go drink. Some of them have these girlfriends or they're just their friends, whatever, it doesn't matter. But like when the locals go out, the tourists show up. And maybe there's an element there of like we're kind of tired of like these transient ski tourists constantly approaching my girlfriend or my sister or
right, right.
whatever it was. I don't actually know what Olivier's relationship to the women was that Liam was talking to. I don't know if that was like his girlfriend or his friends, or if he just knew them from town and was trying to, in a friendly way, say to Liam, like, hey, these leave them alone. They deal with this kind of thing every day. It's kind of annoying to them. Like, I don't really know. We just know the rough gist of it was those girls aren't really interested in your conversation, or at least I'm not interested in seeing it, whatever the case may be. Cut it
Yeah.
out. Beyond that, I don't know. But yes, I do think it's common. And I think it's especially common in a place like this where you have locals butting up against a constant flood of tourists who are there to party and have fun and like maybe hook up with somebody. And it's like, oh, just want to come out with my girlfriend for one night without this happening. I could see it.
No, that exactly. What you just pointed out is a really, really important point. I mean, the dynamic of an area like that, where you just happen to live, where like your local bar is also like a crazy tourist destination for
Right.
people who are literally, it's like Vegas, right? Like they're like, woo, whatever happens on this weekend, stays here, and we're forgetting our daily lives behind and going to ski and drink, and you're like someone who lives down the street and you're just kind of trying to have a drink and you work in this area, it's a different kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is an important dynamic to remember. Do you want to take this next one?
Yeah, sure. So this is Nish D 7161. All right, Nish. They say, I mean, he may have lost his wallet earlier and someone else found it, took the money, and threw it in the snow as they were leaving. Yeah, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, right? Like, did he possibly leave, lose it earlier? And the reason it was found in the snow with the cash missing is just because like a normal person walked by and said, "Oh, free wallet, boop. I want the money. I don't want the wallet." Normally, I'd say yes, but I think all the facts we've gone over here, right? The fact that Liam was very protective of that wallet, he clearly had it all night and closed out his tab at the end of the night, and then it's only a few minutes before he goes missing. I'd wager that he probably didn't lose that wallet until something happened. That's just my feeling. And looking at the facts, it seems like we know he had it. And then there's about 17 minutes where it's conceivable he lost it. But again, this is a guy who keeps it in a zipped compartment, is extremely thoughtful and protective over this wallet. I don't know, Miles. What do you think? Anything new to add to that?
The text at 317 didn't say, "Yo, I lost my wallet." It said, "Yo, come downstairs and meet me." So I don't know. I feel like if that's what was going on at that moment, there might have been, because the idea that like there was urgency and he was looking for it, then why wasn't that what he was communicating to his friends about?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And again, if you just closed out at a bar and you're on a walk back to your hotel and then you realize it's missing and it's 3:17 at night, you just retrace the one block walk that you took and see where you dropped it. Again, I try to be careful with this common sense stuff because not everybody does the common sense thing that we would assume, but I think that's pretty common sense. If I'm walking one block after using my wallet and after the one block I realize I don't have it, the first thing I'm doing is just turning around and retreading my steps because it's going to take 1 minute, and you'll realize it's on the ground or not. And then you go from there. But that just doesn't seem like anything he was doing, right? Not at all what we see on the tape. So, but it's an interesting thought.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. One more comment for this week. So, Glenda Cox, 6540. Hi, Glenda. Thanks for the comment. Good to see you. In these two similar cases of Ryan and Liam, neither body being found is so very peculiar. It's as if they were beamed up. There's that alien thing again. It is so utterly sorrowful that after 4 years of a difficult diploma in electrical engineering is achieved, Liam will never be able to enjoy his labor. As my grandson recently graduated with this major, I know how grueling the curriculum is. From this day forward, I will always think of Liam when speaking with my Andrew. Oh, that's really sweet, Glenda. First of all, congratulations to your grandson. That's amazing. Second of all, yeah, I understand why everyone keeps sort of hitting on this idea of like disappearing into thin air and like maybe it was aliens and because it does feel like they were, at least with Liam, there's the wallet, right? There's some trace. And that's why I'm kind of stuck on this idea that something in particular did happen to him and that he was trying to meet people or perhaps he was duped into something that wasn't actually happening because there is some evidence that he had been there and that somebody did something and then discarded his wallet. Um, but it is very flabbergasting, and they're not the only ones. These two guys are not the only ones who have sort of disappeared into thin air, right? Anyway, it's a very sweet sentiment what you said about thinking of Liam whenever you're talking to your grandson, and hopefully Liam's family sees that. I know that they're watching these vids, so it's much appreciated.
Yeah, right on. Thanks, Glenda. It's nice to see you commenting again. I basically just second everything Miles said. I think that the beaming up into thin air, yeah, we understand why we feel that way, but it also does make me start to wonder, like how intentional was this? Is it, because there's the idea that it was an accident, that something natural happened, which I think most people are leaning away from at this point. Then there's the idea that he ran into somebody or a group of people and something spontaneously transpired. But then there's the third option, which is that somebody directed him to a place that they knew would be quiet and out of the way and there would be no cameras, and that he was surprised by an intentional sort of plan and then made to disappear, which is kind of why I think maybe it looks like he was beamed up because whatever happened was kind of calculated and it was easy to do whatever was done out of sight and clean up, and that's why we're having a lot of trouble with this. I could be wrong, but when you kind of look at everything that happened, it seems like someone had put it in his head that there was something going on over there. Like, you got to get over there. What's going on over there? And who knows what would have happened if he would have actually been able to bring his friends with him. Maybe it wouldn't have gone down the way that it did. But he decided to go alone, and he couldn't get a hold of his friend Kyle. And whatever happened there, I mean, TBD, I guess, but clearly it wasn't good.
Yeah. I think we will find out eventually, though.
I do too. I think somebody in that town knows. I think more than one person in that town knows. And I think that we may even, and I'm not saying I know who, but we may even, have seen these people on camera before, or they might be names familiar to us after looking through this story. I think that it's probably buried in somebody's cell phone record somewhere. I would imagine that there's evidence that just needs to come to light. And look, like we talked about at the beginning, this happened in 2025. It's 2026 right now. Sometimes, whether we like it or not, these investigations take a while, but they do conclude. And I do think with Liam, we're going to get an answer one day. I really feel that way.
Yeah, agreed. So guys, you're watching this on Monday. Our interview with Liam's mom, Kathleen, has already gone up. This Friday, we will be dropping our interview with Chris, Liam's father, and Lara, his stepmom. I think we've mentioned this earlier, but it is worth watching both. I think Kathleen and Chris and Lara have very different perspectives, though, the same goals. And not to say they're in opposition to each other, but I think they just have different opinions and different insights into what may have happened to Liam and the circumstances of that night. So even if you've watched Kathleen's interview, I would give Chris and Lara's interview a watch as well, because I do think it's worth it. I did want to say that even though these comment reaction videos don't go up on our audio podcast is really blowing up, and I don't know how much crossover there is between you guys who are watching us on YouTube and people who are just getting us like at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But I did want to say thank you to anybody who is sort of living in both spots,
Mm.
because we are getting a lot more traction with the audio podcast. And obviously, we're really excited about that. And, it's obviously it's giving me and Sean more work because we're kind of like having to manage multiple things right now. But that's the way it is, and we're trying to build something here. So, just wanted to say thanks to anybody who has been checking out the audio podcast. Obviously, if you're interested, just go anywhere where you get your audio podcast. That would be Apple, Amazon, Spotify. What is it? Podbean, I want to say.
The
Uh,
list goes deep, guys. Yeah,
yes, there's a
there's a
deep
lot of
list.
podcasts,
There's a lot of
podcasts.
places, and we're all over it. But just look for True Crime Unsolved, and again, all of our stuff is there in audio format. All of our deep dives, all of our interviews. The only thing that's not up there is these comment reacts, because we really keep that just for our YouTube audience. It's kind of a special thing that we do with you guys here. So thanks again for being the folks that have been with us since day one. And Sean, anything else that you want to say?
There is one more thing. Yeah. So for those of you who are members, like KG Penguin that we mentioned earlier, we want to say a big thank you. And obviously, the biggest part of that membership is that it supports what we do, right? Like it's a little bit of money that really helps Miles and I stay on task, support the mission. We put a lot of work into this, and sometimes things do cost money. So it is very helpful. And I wanted to say that now that Miles is kind of back from his, trip overseas, things are going to start to normalize for us to the point where I think we're going to be able to offer you more behind the paywall sort of content. It's been a little tough just with him being at such a drastically different time zone and me kind of having to like do a lot of this editorial work, but the membership is beyond just a thank you. We are going to have more stuff coming there that is just for members only. It's just a matter of us now finally having some time to sit down and do it. So thank you guys, everyone who's gotten in early and believed in it. The support's the biggest part, but we're going to have some stuff coming for you as well. And
Yeah.
also, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at the join button below this video and check it out.
And I was going to say, everyone who's sort of been waiting because you're wondering, like, what do I get with the membership? And I totally get that. We so appreciate the people who are just here to support us on what we're already doing. But we also understand that, like, you want to get a little more bang for your buck. Just keep an eye on things, because, as Sean said, things are starting to normalize for us. We've managed to get through this period of me being out of town, and we're going to start, dropping hints and information about new and awesome perks that we're going to be developing.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for another wonderful week of comments. We really, really love seeing your guys' thoughts on these videos, and it's so fun for us to sit down and kind of engage with you. So keep it up. Lots more good content coming along the way, and we'll see you in the comments next Monday.
Thanks, everybody.